Hi everyone, I'm Morgan. Welcome to my identity exploration podcast slash presentation. I'm not really sure what we're calling it. Actually, this is my first ever podcast presentation, maybe my last. We don't know. Also, I'm currently sick, so that's rather unfortunate for my podcast debut. I have RSV and a ruptured eardrum, so bear with me. For this project, I'm exploring how women's self identity can be shaped by body image and internalized self worth, and also how those correlate with each other. I'm not just talking about I don't like how I look or I'm sad, so maybe I should lose a few lbs and I'll feel better, but like how we really, really deeply see ourselves as people. Well, I feel this is a super common thought from women and maybe some men all over the world, but it also is deep and it can be pretty dark if one allows it to be. For this project, I'm using Kate Pearson from This Is Us. This show debuted in 2016. Eek, I'm old. Um, anyway, I was hooked and I watched all 5 or 6 seasons. I'm not really sure, there are quite a few. Just a quick overview if you aren't familiar. Kate and her brothers, her two brothers, are known as the Big Three, as they are triplets. The show flashes between the past, present, and future of all their lives and how they change and evolve as humans over time throughout their lives. One of Kate's brothers is a childhood brainiac who becomes this successful business professional, and he is very successful. He has like the perfect family. Everybody outside looking in thinks that he has this perfect life, which we know is never really the case, but that's how he is portrayed. The other brother is a high school quarterback heartthrob who actually turns into this famous actor who grows into like an adult heartthrob who all the women adore and want to be with, and he just has this great life again, as everyone thinks from the outside. And then there's Kate, who's struggled with lifelong challenges involving weight and self-esteem, all while trying to land a spot in the music profession. Like, that's her ultimate goal, which we know can be very critical, and it's not always glorious. Of course, if you make it, it's great, but a lot of people struggle along the way, and very few actually, can do that as a profession. I've included a few clips so you can kind of see just like how the three of them mesh. There's a couple pictures that I've included from childhood and adulthood, just so you can kind of get a visual concept as we follow along, so that you can see Kate's betrayal from others, I guess. And I also included one picture of Kate, kind of how her evolution over the years throughout the show, again, just so you can kind of follow along. Anyways, you should go watch it for yourself. I think that you can stream it on Disney Plus or Tubi. Anyway, that's what the internet says. I really don't know. I don't have either one of those, so I cannot confirm nor deny this. But this really isn't about the storyline, but more of the character that is Kate Pearson. What we are going to focus on is how body image and self-worth appear in her character, and how she sees herself, and also how it shapes and alters her identity over time. So how do I look, how do I feel, and who am I? How do they all correlate? How do they all tie in together? It could become a central way women and even men evaluate their worth as people, which is total crap, but it is reality, unfortunately. So the first thing that I want to introduce is the concept of weight bias internalization. Personally, this wasn't a term that I was familiar with before starting this research project, but once I did start researching, it kind of popped up everywhere. It's also referred to as WBI. So as I continue to ramble on, you might also hear me call it that. According to the article by Pearl and Paul, you can find a list of my sources at the end of this presentation slash podcast. I've included them for your own exploration if you would like to delve deeper into this topic or concept. According to Pearl and Paul, weight bias internalization happens when individuals absorb negative societal stereotypes about body weight and apply them to themselves. So instead of just recognizing that these stigmas and these standards exist and knowing that society has these unrealistic or unfair body standards or stigmas, people begin to believe these stereotypes and standards and reflect their personal value. So basically, it's believing the negative weight-based stereotypes and applying them to your self-concept. And that word self-concept is very crucial. That's kind of what this whole project goes back to. Once your self-concept is affected or questioned, then you just start to question yourself as a whole. They also found that internalized weight bias is associated with lower self-esteem and psychological distress distress regardless of your BMI. So it's not necessarily the body size itself causing the harm, like physically, it's more of the internalized stigma in what you believe. So that really resonated with me because I have, over time, I've, lost weight, gained weight. I've went through phases where I've been anorexic, I've been an athlete, and then I wasn't an athlete, and then I gained this weight back. I've had babies, and I've had postpartum. And anyway, so basically what kind of Pearl and Paul are saying is it's not just if you're 400 pounds and, obviously that also applies, but it's just kind of the stigma that you have in yourself, that you can just kind of listen to others and it kind of just tear you down. So it's not necessarily your weight, it's these expectations from these TV shows, models, TikTok, whatever, you just get these unrealistic stigmas and they affect how you, view yourself as a person. That really stood out. And again, it's basically that the issue isn't weight, it's this meaning attached to the weight. It's this attributed identity that's assigned to you by others or created for you by others. Others that don't even know you, yet they can judge you. So how does all of that relate to Kate Pearson? Well, her character is portrayed by someone who struggles with body image and societal expectations, as we had previously mentioned. These stereotypes and stigmas, they negatively affected her, and they could be seen throughout the entire series. For example, she just basically played this role of this self-hating, obese woman. And we see many scenes that they're difficult to watch, in my opinion. There's a scene about her stressing about her mother watching her choose her snacks. There was a time when the triplets were younger and they had to jump over this fence in a pressing situation, and she didn't feel comfortable. And it wasn't that she couldn't jump over the fence, it's that in her mind, she was afraid of failure and what others would think about her or say about her. So these were all things that they were all out of fear of judgment. These stigmas are very real. So next, I looked at research focused specifically on the adult population. In a study by Basker and colleagues, it was conducted in 2025, so this is recent. You can't say this is outdated or, times have changed, because times have changed, but this is, it doesn't get much more recent than this study. So basically, Basker and his buddies, they had 142 people with obesity who presented to this metabolic weight loss clinic in India, and they had them complete this weight-biased internalization scale, also known as WBIS. And I thought this was relevant because at one time, Kate Pearson, she did contemplate a weight loss surgery. But again, we're not concentrating on the storyline. That just kind of ties into all of it. This study took place over a 9-month span in 2024, and all the patients who participated in this study had a BMI greater than 27.5. So essentially, the WBIS is a variety of questions that focuses on attributions made towards oneself. So for example, a few of the questions that they asked these participants were listed were, as an overweight person, I feel that I am just as competent as anyone. Another one of the questions was, I'm okay being the weight I am. And then participants could respond, strongly agree, disagree, We've all done surveys like that, so you get the point. But one of the questions that really stood out to me was, my weight is a major way I judge my value as a person. Okay, I told you that this is real. This can get deep. So that's not some I don't feel cute today shit. That's real. That's some serious shit. We're talking about self-value and self-worth and how it really can tear you down. Basker and his buds basically correlated that higher levels of internalized weight stigma were highly associated with lower self-worth and higher emotional stress, which was also kind of in the article that we had talked about earlier. So again, this isn't surface level stuff. This is real. This is real scars and real voids. Another thing that the article brought to light was that WBI was found to still exist even after surgery, despite significant weight loss, and despite any type of targeted therapies. So these people still blame themselves for disordered eating, difficulty to adhering to strict diets, physical guidelines, and some weight gain. As I mentioned, it leaves real scars. So even when their problem was solved, they still had these internal fears or self-blame. And younger participants had significantly more internalized weight bias compared to those older. Again, this starts in young children. As we look back at Kate Pearson, this started at a very young age. She compared her size to those around her. She got all the jokes, laughter, the whispers behind her back. I mean, even her mom, her own mother, got a few jabs in her over the years that we see. So similarly, Moyen and his friends conducted a systematic review / meta-analysis examining global self-esteem and weight status in adults, and again found that overweight and obesity were significantly associated with lower overall self-esteem. So again, these are all correlating. This is very real. This is not just one study saying this. This is a consensual agreement from multiple researchers. So self-esteem varies through the lifespan, but when we think about weights, we think about the different phases of life as well. So as school-age children, there's bullying in schools. It's obvious. We all know that. We all know it's true. We're self-aware, I think. And then maybe you gain a little confidence after high school because, you become away from this negativity and you become an individual and But then let's say you're an elderly, overweight person, adult seeking medical care. I work in healthcare. I've seen it firsthand. What do people say when they see other people needing back surgery or a knee replacement? When they're 400 pounds, the snickers, well, yeah, I bet those knees are tired, or, that back has definitely been putting in some effort time. 400 pounds and you wonder why your knee hurts. Like, I get it. It's gross. It's disturbing, but it's true. I've heard it with my own ears. I've witnessed it. I've witnessed the discrimination. It's very real. So even, as we travel through our lifespan, it's always there. The stigma is always there. What's important here is that they aren't just measuring dissatisfaction of our body, that they're measuring their overall self-esteem. So how someone sees themselves as a whole person, not just how they feel about their appearance. And again, these patterns persist into adulthood. They're consistently present. They don't go away. It's consistently an issue that sticks around as we develop, as we grow, as we discover who we are. So to continue as identity as an ongoing process, there's an article on Growth Through Adversity by Plews, Ogun, Artlett, and Owens. Again, you can find this in my last slide. They argue that identity develops through adversity. So they basically explain that growth doesn't mean that difficulty goes away, but it can just kind of affect how we react to it or how we adapt to it. Plews, Ogun, Artlett, and Owens focus on how people can gain wisdom or experience or positivity through these traumatic situations. They concentrate on how through these experiences we can shift or almost transform our identities. And again, since we're looking at body image and self and internalized worth, I think this is a valuable source. So basically, how can we turn trauma into a learning experience? Where do we go from here? How do we move on? How do we grow as people? So I think that Kate Pearson also does a great example of showing us that despite many obstacles and traumatic situations, she does come out ahead in the end. I'm not saying that it was pretty, that it was easy, but she's proof, her character is proof that it is possible. Since her childhood, Kate struggled with taking risks, putting herself out there because of her lack of confidence and her low self-esteem. We see proof in several of the flashback scenes throughout the series. However, we've also seen her use her past to accomplish some victories. Like one time she confronted an abusive ex-boyfriend, or she finally overcame all of her fears and landed her dream job as a musical instructor for a school of the blind, and her son is blind, so that's like very, very impactful job for her. And she, just by pushing herself, it really paid off. In season 1, we see that Kate was really obsessed with losing weight, her image, but as the show progressed, it kind of shifts more on to her happiness and her relationship with her weight, and that the weight loss is not her top priority anymore. More of her priorities is becoming, more connected to her partner, and to relationship, to being a better mother, to just ultimately being happy. And I feel like deep down she knew that she wanted all these things all along, but she might not have thought that she deserved it. And that's, again, what these stigmas do to us. They can really damage you long term. But she took control of her past and she turned it into personal growth. And that's kind of what this article is referencing, is how we can use the negatives to make it a positive. Task after task, building our confidence, rebuilding your internalized self-worth. And I think that that's, again, the message that this article was trying to prove, and she did a good job portraying that in the show. Basically, again, what their point of this whole article is, adversity can shape our lives. So just because we go through some negative stuff doesn't mean that we can't come out positive, doesn't mean that we can rebuild and regroup. And I think that is important when we're talking about body image. If someone internalizes a stigma over the years, whether it's through media, relationships, family comments, etc., they don't go away. But it can be altered, and I'm not going to say fixed because it's always going to be there, but it's something that forms and reforms over time, and through experience we can build off of it and we can become better. So this is, now all of this information is very overwhelming, not only to you but to me as well. So let's just do a quick recap on how this ties into what we've learned throughout the semester. The most obvious thing that sticks out to me is attributed and acclaimed identity. Obviously, Kate just doesn't wake up one day and have body image issues. She's received this over the years from her family dynamics, media, comparisons, again, social media, blah, blah, blah. These are examples of attributed identity. There are meanings placed by others and what we would call by the field or by observers. Through repeated experiences, there's some micro-invalidations and some microaggressions around body size. Those external messages, they become internalized, and eventually they begin to shape her claimed identity, which is, of course, how she sees herself and how she feels and how she describes herself. What's powerful here is we can also see identity management happening. There are moments where she tries to resist or redefine how she's seen, and there are also moments of identity affirmation where she attempts to claim value outside of her appearance, which, fair. I mean, there's way more to her, as if you watch the show, there's way more to her than just this stigma of her weight and her size. But because, body evaluation has become so central and so important, it was difficult for her to see her true worth. And the whole social identity theory, of course, where we live in a society where thinness is idolized, and that's what all the celebrities doing. When someone repeatedly sees this and experiences this, and you're not positioned in the ideal, the social distinction is real, and it can shape our self-concept and our identity. Also, the whole multiple identities things, which I kind of briefly touched on, but not really. She's a daughter. Obviously, she's a sibling. She gets married. She's a spouse. She's a professional, the assistant music teacher. She becomes a mother. These are all identities that she is, not, that there's more to her. But when body-based self-worth is highly noticeable, it can overshadow these identities. It can start to function like dominance, like that's all it takes, influencing how she interprets her success and her failures and her relationships. She wasn't giving herself enough credit for all of these things that she's juggling. She's accomplished so much, but she only focused on the negatives, on her weight. And I really resonated with this. Probably most of us have. We internalize the negative. We're all doing a lot. We do a lot of good, but we have tunnel vision on the things that we're not succeeding at, and we don't give ourselves enough credit for what we are doing well. So that's important to remember to do that for ourselves. Kate's character also often evaluates herself through comparison, shame, and perceived inadequacy. Her internal dialogue reflects what Pearl and Paul describe as, again, applying that negative weight-based belief to one's self-concept. Rather than simply being portrayed as someone who struggles with confidence, Kate represents how body evaluation can become part of her identity. Again, this affected her adulthood, relationship, decision-making, self-perception, all throughout the show. So just a quick recap, because I've obviously been rambling on for way too long. When stigma becomes internalized, it can reshape our entire identity. The research by Pearl and Paul and Basker, they all show this process of how internalization shifts body image from something external to something embedded in ourselves that's internal, and it affects us through our self-esteem through our entire lifespan. When one starts to believe these attributed identities, they become internalized, they can reshape your claimed identity, and when that identity becomes the main focus of your entire life, it can influence your entire life, and you start to spiral, everything starts to spiral. You get just so hyper-focused on stuff that nothing else matters. So you can, using these terms using the identity terms from the class, we can see that body image is not just an insecurity. It's socially constructed and reinforced, and it's real, and it's internalized, and that's what makes this whole an identity issue. It's not just this confidence issue, as many people assume. It's very deep, and it's a real issue that can affect your entire identity.